The Ravens Preview Show with Andy Pollin starts right now.
It wasn't perfect, it wasn't pretty, but it was the Ravens.
Listen to all Ravens broadcasts right here on 6:30 a.m., the ESPN 630 app, or ESPN630DC.com.
And with 1:17 left to play, the Hayes in the barn.
Now, here's Andy Pollin.
Ravens and Houston Texans from M&T Bank Stadium tomorrow, 4:30 kickoff. Our coverage here on ESPN 630 begins at 4 o'clock, and we do Ravens preview every Friday. And today we are joined by Kyle J. Andrews of Baltimore Sports and Life. It's kind of a been there, done that for this Baltimore team. 4 years ago, they had the best record in the AFC at 14-2, and they got to host Tennessee in a playoff game. And Lamar Jackson, although he put up some big numbers, turned the ball over 3 times, and they got run over by Derrick Henry and lost the game. Why should Baltimore fans be optimistic that that won't happen on the field tomorrow?
Well, number one, because the defensive line is better. I mean, I think in that previous game, one, the Ravens weren't able to control the point of attack. And in this situation now, you have Justin Madubuike, who has been controlling the front. And then I think you also have a formidable duo in the older but wiser Kyle Van Noy and Jadeveon Clowney that can set the edge in a little bit better of a way. And that's something that I've, been pretty impressed by this Ravens defense with, is just because they set the edge at a very high level. It's not a lot like how they were in 2019. I'll say that. And, Roquan Smith, that's a given.
Yeah, I mean, Roquan Smith seems to me joined the team last year in a trade at the deadline and has quickly taken over as kind of the new Ray Lewis, a little bit different personality, but wouldn't you say he's clearly the leader of this defense?
I would say so. And, I think they have a number of leaders on this defense, too. It's not just to say that Roquan Smith isn't, the de facto leader, but it's also to say that, Patrick Queen has stepped up at a very high level. As long as when Roquan Smith came in, and even before that, earlier on in last season, Patrick Queen stepped up. Kyle Hamilton's become a leader on this defense. Even though Marlon Humphrey's out, I would say he's a leader on the defense, even though he'll be gone tomorrow. And I think that they have so many different guys that have contributed to, the overall Ravens defense was missing for so long. I think that these guys are, not only are they talented, but they're trying to ball hawk. That's something that they hadn't done in a while. They have a lot of stars on this defense, very star-studded defense that is, it's names all across the board. But not only do they have the names, but they have the production to back it up. Like I said, Jadeveon Clowney came back in a big way and has had the highest sack total of his career with the Ravens. I think he's revived his career. Kyle Van Noy, same thing with him. And then you have these guys on the back end and the safeties of Marcus Williams, Geno Stone, Kyle Hamilton. All three are starters, but Kyle Hamilton's a monster. Geno Stone, if I'm not mistaken, is leading the league in interceptions, and he's a backup safety. So, and then when it comes to Marcus Williams, he's so talented, but he's been banged up all season, and then he still has a handful of picks himself. And I just think this is a, very star-studded group on a defensive end.
We're talking to Kyle J. Andrews, and we're focusing pretty much on the defense of the Ravens, which has been terrific this year. And there is something to look at this matchup, and that's the fact that they played this year. But, boy, it was so early in the season. It was the opening game, and the Ravens won it 25-9. It was the first game in the NFL that C.J. Stroud played. He was 28 of 44. They sacked him 5 times. What we saw last week against Cleveland, he's clearly better than he was in that game. The question is, how much better is the Ravens' defense since they played in that opener?
I would say the Ravens' defense is better, too. However, I'll say that with a caveat is that without Marlon Humphrey, I think that, it'll be hard to replicate what they have been able to do in the past couple of days. or the past couple of weeks. I apologize. Especially against the 49ers. I mean, Marlon Humphrey was just sitting there jamming guys up and, making guys look foolish. I mean, you do have, I will say, Brandon Stevens has played really well this season. I mean, he's been a guy that I thought might have been a Pro Bowler. He stepped up in a pretty big way. He's a big guy, too. They've had him play a little bit of safety at the beginning of the season. But I think that this Ravens defense is still incredibly talented. And you got to keep in mind, too, not only did they have,
we lose him?
He got hurt.
There we go.
Marcus Williams got hurt earlier in that game, if I'm not mistaken. And then you got to keep in mind, too, that, Kyle Van Noy wasn't there in the first game. He didn't get signed, I want to say, about 6-7 weeks into the season.
Right.
So they have I think this group is different. It's still strong, and I think that it'll be a great matchup for sure.
All right, the question du jour of the week is Lamar Jackson. He's going to win his second MVP this year, and he's 1-3 in the playoffs. The pressure that he's facing to come through against a team who, well, by the way, the Texans have never won one of these games either, so they have not had a great playoff record. But the pressure for Lamar to win this, he seems to be handling it very well. But what's your take on what he's going to be facing as he goes into this playoff game tomorrow? And we're having some phone issues, sounds like. Oh, there we go. Now you're back. Go ahead. Answer that, please. Thanks.
Gotcha.
Go ahead.
Yeah, he's hyper-focused on this game for sure. And I think that, the added preparation of having Todd Monken as your offensive coordinator, a guy that is going to prepare you for everything. He's going to throw everything at, the entire kitchen sink at a defense. And then not to mention, Lamar had made very good pocket passes in the past. I think the weapons at this point are significantly better. I mean, you got to give him that. I feel like in the past, we could talk about how much he struggled or whatever against the Titans at one game when they lost his second playoff game. And in his first playoff game, he had John Brown, who was a very aged Michael Crabtree.
Right.
Rookie Mark Andrews, who wasn't at Mark Andrews that we know today. Rookie Hayden Hurst. That was a pretty inexperienced group outside of, your first two receivers. And then I think Willie Snead, who had just been cut by the Saints. And then the second season, he had Seth Roberts, Willie Snead, and I think those were your two best receivers that season.
Yeah, and now you got Odell. Yeah, right.
Yeah, Odell Beckham, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman. I would say just between the three of those guys, that's a very improved group. And then if Nelson Aguilar is your number 4 receiver, that's a pretty good problem to have, in my opinion.
Yeah,
and
you may have Andrews back tomorrow as well. Will be game time decision, I guess, on him. So yeah, he's definitely got more weapons this year. And then we'll see what holds up in the running game, and we'll see what they get out of Dalvin Cook. Maybe he has one of those playoff surprises too. So a lot more weapons to work with. Defense playing at a high level. That said, Ravens favored by 9.5. What happens in the game?
I think it'll be closer to 9.5. I think I had it at 28-21 in our podcast that we did with Baltimore Sports Life called The Bank. And we had there wasn't a lot of points of contention in the score, but 28-21 I feel like is a reasonable score. I think the Ravens, they get a stop at the end of the game. It's going to be loud there. And Cal Ripken's going to be back in Baltimore for that game, so good. That's pretty cool. Ray Lewis too. So really interesting group that they have there.
All right, should be great tomorrow afternoon. How do people access your podcast, Baltimore Sports and Life? So
Baltimore Sports and Life, you could go on Twitter. We are Be More Sports Life on Twitter, at Be More Sports Life on Twitter, and then also you can follow our podcast. It's called The Bank. That's on Spotify, Apple, any podcast platform that you're looking for. And then You can follow me at Kyle J. Andrews _ on Twitter. And then last thing I have to say is that not only will Cal Ripken and Ray Lewis be there, but if I'm not mistaken, Jimmy Eat World, 2000s band, they're performing. So, if you guys like that type of music, listen to the Ravens halftime performance.
I'll be listening under a blanket in my basement, but looking forward to it. Thanks very much, Kyle. Enjoy the game tomorrow.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You as well.
Thank you. That's Kyle J. Andrews of Baltimore Sports and Life. Coming up, comments from players and coaches and what Chris Sims says about what happened in 2019 and why it won't happen tomorrow at the bank. Stay with us. It's Ravens Preview, ESPN 630.
Ravens on 3, 1, 2, 3.
This is the Ravens Preview Show presented by Verizon. Here's Andy Pollin.
Ravens and the Houston Texans in the divisional playoffs tomorrow, 4:30 kickoff at M&T Bank Stadium. Our coverage here on ESPN 630 will start at 4 o'clock. Ravens are favored by 9.5. These two teams opened up the season in Baltimore, and the Ravens won the game 25-9. C.J. Stroud making his first start as a rookie quarterback for the Texans. 28 of 44, 242 yards. They sacked him 5 times. Not a big passing game for Lamar. Didn't really have to do that much, 169 yards. But the Baltimore defense was dominant that day. As the season has gone on, C.J. Stroud has earned Rookie of the Year, which he will win. He was very impressive last week against what was a really good defense in the Cleveland Browns. But he's going to play in cold weather this time around, and he's going to play against a team that has memories of where they were 4 years ago when they were in a similar situation. They had the best record in the AFC at 14-2. They're 14-3 going into tomorrow's game, and there was 3 turnovers by Lamar Jackson in that game, and Derrick Henry ran for 195 yards, and the Tennessee Titans won. Why this will be different, according to Chris Sims on Pro Football Talk.
Hey, the thing we've talked about from a few years ago with the Ravens sitting out, being the number 1 seed that year, I think that was a parade year. Like, oh, man, look, we were great. We won it, blah, blah, blah. Hey, we're the number 1 seed. Lamar was the MVP. I don't think they care about any of that crap this year. I don't. I think they've had their sights on the Super Bowl all year long. I think they realized what they did a few years ago in that divisional game. I'm going to be shocked if the Ravens get caught sleeping here. Now, do I think that means they're necessarily going to come out and be hitting on all cylinders? No. I still think there'll be a little bit of, like what you said, a rust factor, a fact that we haven't played all that much, and the Texans have played 2 playoff games here down the stretch, so they're ready to go. But I think clearly the Ravens are the better football team. I think the other thing I look at, too, is I don't think, the Ravens are not, they're a little more tactical. They're not as meatheadish of the Browns, right? The Browns, I just did not think they were going to be quite that blindly aggressive, right? Against a guy like C.J. Stroud and the Bobby Slowick offense and just go, oh, we're going to come out and get in their face and take a chance every play. The Ravens are different in the fact that they'll trust their front 7 a little and go, okay, hey, you might run the ball on us here a little bit. You might get 3. You might get 5. So what? But we're not going to let you throw the 70-yard corner post or, some other big play. They're a little more protective of that, let alone I think they have more versatility in their defense compared to Cleveland.
So they're not as meatheadish, according to Chris Sims. I've never heard defense described that way, but it is an experienced defense that's playing at a really high level and coming off stoning 2 really good teams, winning at San Francisco and then 6 days later beating Miami at home. There could be a rematch with San Francisco in the Super Bowl. We'll have to see, but they got to take care of business this week and next week. Question is, will they have Mark Andrews available? He went out in the middle of November with what he describes as a similar injury to what Terrell Owens had the year that the Eagles went to the Super Bowl with Donovan McNabb and lost to New England. Now, that was I think it was 10 weeks for T.O. Before he got back for the Super Bowl. This is going to be like 8 or 9. Modern medicine may have advanced a little bit, but this is Andrews talking to reporters the other day. He did practice this week, talking to reporters about the prognosis for him playing tomorrow.
There was a clear-cut plan, in process, and I'm very thankful for the people that are around here, from Mr. Bisciotti, making my life easier through the travel and everything else, and Coach Harbaugh, the training staff, in the weight room, Scott Elliott, Adrian Dixon and training staff, Mike Thomas. These guys had a plan together for me, and like I said, all I had to do was come here and every day and work and get better and better. So yeah, it's gotten a lot better week by week, and we've made a lot of progress.
How have you been feeling this week, and how are you feeling right now?
Yeah, it's been good. There's a lot of different things I'm doing to get better. I know the Terrell Owens, he kind of had the same injury, and the hyperbaric oxygen chamber, all that good stuff, and I'm doing everything I can to get back, get ready, and after I work hard like a day like this, it's recovery, get swelling down, and feel good for the next day, which I usually do.
What is going to kind of be the deciding factor?
I think it's how I feel at the end of the day, but just knowing how good this team is, how good our players are, how good our tight ends are. If I feel like I'm going to be helpful to the team, I'm going to go. If I feel like I'm close but not there, let these guys go and hopefully get that next weekend.
Next weekend, if they get there, they would be hosting the AFC Championship game, which Baltimore hasn't done since 1971. That was the year that the Colts beat the Cowboys in the Super Bowl. Now, it's a different Baltimore. That's the Colts team that's now Indianapolis. This is, from those days, the Cleveland team that's now the Baltimore Ravens. But if you're looking at cities, you look at it that way. Also, with the Houston Texans, they're 0-4 in the divisional round, losing to Baltimore in January of 2012. The Oilers are the last Houston team to play in the AFC Championship game, but that was 44 years ago. That's when they played the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Steelers were on their way to yet another Super Bowl during that 4 Super Bowl run. As for what they're doing defensively, though, and what they did in the opening game against C.J. Stroud when they sacked him 6 times, this is Roquan Smith, the leader of that defense, and the pressure now that they are in the playoffs, now that they are the top seed, the pressure now to get it done.
Honestly, what happened in the regular season happened in the regular season. We passed that. We're on to the postseason, and we don't need any extra confidence at all. We know exactly who we are. We're a bunch of dogs at the end of the day, and a nicer way of saying it, and guys that, do anything for each other and try to, knock off anybody that's trying to stop that coming in between us, in a sense. So we don't need confidence by any means. We know exactly who we are, so we just got to come out and show that to the world who will be watching, and versus a really good team in Houston.
Well, on those lines, how much do you guys as a defense feel like, it's either whether it's pressure or responsibility is on you guys, just the way that how well you play this year to continue that into the playoffs?
Pressure, hell, I don't feel pressure at all, but some do say pressure bursts pipes will make diamonds. And hey, I know a lot of guys in there like diamonds, so I would say we're in the diamond making business at the end of the day. But at the end of the day, we just got to come out and be who we are, and that's going to start from the first play to the last play, send a message, exactly who we are and what we've been all year. And this is a new year right here, so everybody is 0-0 going into each and every game, and it's about winning the game at hand, and that's our focus. And I know if we do everything to the standard that we know, everything else will work out for us.
Roquan Smith's running mate at linebacker, Patrick Queen. Incredible duo, the two of them. He, of course, played in that opening game against C.J. Stroud, part of the group that sacked him 5 times, but not overlooking a quarterback who he says has come a long way in one season.
I always believed in C.J. Ever since, me personally, I want him to go number 1 in the draft, honestly. I think he was the best quarterback in that draft. So I'm a huge C.J. Stroud fan, but after the game, I think I might have said it in the interview, post-game interview or something, that he was going to be great. Like, you could tell, like, he's poised. He can make every single throw on the field, even on the run, across his body. Just flicking his wrist, not even putting that much effort into it. So I think when you see a guy like that who don't care about getting hit, still going to put the ball on the money and stuff, you got to give him credit. And,
right.
He's definitely not playing like a rookie right now, so I definitely got a lot of respect for him.
Couple of things from the head coach, John Harbaugh. We talked to Kyle J. Andrews of Baltimore Sports Life a few minutes ago about the weapons that Lamar Jackson has now that he didn't have in 2019 when they lost in a similar situation. And really the key piece that they've added this year is a guy who's won a Super Bowl a couple of years ago, played a big role in the Rams winning. And this is Harbaugh on Odell Beckham and how well he's playing now.
Odell's been through so much, and he's worked so hard. And it hasn't been easy. I mean, I think there's a lot of pain involved there over the course of the last 2 years, and even throughout the course of the season, in terms of working through the different challenges. And he's at his best right now. You see him out there; he looks really good. He's moving around, excellent, fast. He's catching the ball. He's running great routes. So I think I'm looking forward to seeing what he does here.
All right. And last thing is the rematch. This is Harbaugh, who faced Houston in the opening game. They won it 25-9. What he's looking for in the game coming up tomorrow.
They're just 17 weeks better. I think they do a good job. Obviously, they've steadily improved every single week. I thought they were a very good football team week one. I think if you go back and check your records, you'll find that. So they haven't surprised me, or they haven't surprised us. They've done pretty much what I thought they were going to do. They're a very good football team. They're very talented. They play very hard. They execute at a high level. CJ's just doing a phenomenal job. Nico Collins, Michigan guy, man, he's a go-to guy for him. A lot of skill players, good offensive line, playing very physical. Defense is all over the field, as you'd expect, Obviously, just a really good football team.
Okay, so it's all set for tomorrow. M&T Bank Stadium, 4:30 kickoff. Ravens and Texans coverage here begins at 4 o'clock. I want to thank Kyle J. Andrews of Baltimore Sports and Life for joining us today. Thanks to Rex Minturn for running the show. Thanks to all of you who listened. Tony is coming up next, and I'll see you back here Monday morning at 9 a.m.